Feeling heavy and bloated after a fatty meal is a good sign that something is off with your bile flow. And because bile is not just necessary for fat digestion, but also for nutrient absorption and toxin elimination, improving it is extremely important. So let's talk about how to do this naturally and without any side effects. Okay, so to improve bile flow, we basically want to achieve three main things. One, we want to keep bile thin and fluid so it doesn't get sludgy. Two, we want to make sure the gallbladder and bile ducts aren't blocked. And three, we want to support the hormonal and nerve signals that trigger bile release at the right time. Just as a side note, if you think your bile isn't flowing well because you aren't producing enough of it in the first place, please also watch my video on increasing bile production. There is some overlap with this video, but there are still two different subjects. So bile production and then bile flow, which is what we will talk about in this video. Okay, the first thing you have to understand is that even though bile is mostly water, it also contains cholesterol, bile acids, and other things. So when it becomes too thick or too concentrated, it can move more slowly, and that's when you might get bile sludge or even gallstones over time. The good news is that there are some key nutrients and compounds that can help keep bile flowing. The three most important nutrients here are taurine, choline, and magnesium. So let's talk about each in more detail. Taurine is an amino acid that plays a big role in bile flow because it's used to conjugate bile acids, which means you're attaching something else to the bile acids. When bile acids are bound to taurine, they become more water soluble, which keeps bile thin and less likely to form sludge. Without enough taurine, bile can get thicker, making it harder to move through the ducts. Taurine is found mainly in animal-based foods like fish, meat, and dairy, so people on vegetarian or vegan diets might not get much from food. Your body can make taurine on its own, but during stress or when you're sick, your demand can definitely go up. What that means is that the first nutrient I want you to think about in terms of bile flow is taurine, and you should definitely think about supplementation if you aren't getting enough through your diet. Most supplemental dosages range from 500 milligrams to 2000 milligrams per day. By the way, glycine, which is another amino acid, can also be conjugated with bile acids. But in humans, about 3 times more bile acids are linked to taurine than to glycine. Also, taurine-conjugated bile acids are more effective at staying in solution, so it's definitely the more important amino acid when it comes to this. Next, we have choline, or more specifically, a certain type of choline called phosphatidylcholine. Phosphatidylcholine helps keep bile fluid and prevents cholesterol from crystallizing into stones. It acts like a natural emulsifier, so it keeps all the components of bile mixed and therefore flowing freely. Low levels of phosphatidylcholine can make your bile sticky, which then raises the risk of gallstones. This type of choline is found especially in things like eggs and some meats. When it comes to supplements, by far the best source would be lecithin, which is one of my favorite supplements, especially when you buy a high quality one like organic sunflower lecithin. For dosage, most supplements range from around 1200 milligrams to 2400 milligrams per day, sometimes split into 2 doses with meals. This will give you around 250 to 500 milligrams of phosphatidylcholine, and for liver support, some people go over that dose, including me, but definitely start low and see how you react to it. Third, we have magnesium. It supports bile flow in a different way because it helps the gallbladder and bile ducts relax. They are made of smooth muscle, and magnesium helps that muscle tissue contract and then relax again in a healthy rhythm. If the ducts spasm or the gallbladder is tense, then your bile can back up or flow more slowly. Unfortunately, magnesium deficiency is super common nowadays due to modern diets, stress, and exercise. Good food sources include leafy greens, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, but many people will have to supplement in order to improve their levels long term. By keeping your magnesium levels optimal all the time, you make sure that your bile can always be released smoothly when your body needs it, which then prevents stagnation and stone formation. Okay, besides these 3 nutrients, there are also a few more like vitamin C, which helps prevent bile from becoming overly saturated with cholesterol, or omega-3 fatty acids, which improve the composition of bile and also reduce inflammation in the bile ducts themselves. And of course, you want to make sure you're always well hydrated, because if you're dehydrated, bile will always get thicker, no matter if you do everything else right. Okay, now that we have the basics out of the way, let's talk about cholagogues and lifestyle. Cholagogues are substances that promote the flow of bile from the liver and gallbladder into the small intestine. I will look at these once you have the basics covered and need some extra support. So these can be things like artichoke leaf extract, which has a long history of use for liver and gallbladder health. Studies have shown that it can increase bile flow and could even help protect liver cells from direct damage. Also turmeric and its active compound curcumin, because they reduce inflammation and improve bile flow through the bile ducts, especially if they're a bit inflamed, so similar to omega-3. Then we have ginger, which boosts the motility of the upper digestive tract, which indirectly helps bile move along. It also has anti-inflammatory effects and is easy to add to your meals or some tea maybe. Gentian root, which is one of the classic bitter herbs that stimulates bile release through CCK. We will talk about that in a second. This works best when taken right before meals. And lastly, peppermint oil, because it has a relaxing effect on smooth muscle, just like magnesium. When it comes to cholagogues, you will also often find milk thistle listed there, but technically it's more of a bile production supporter than a bile flow supporter. But obviously what isn't there can't flow right, so it probably won't hurt to also try it out. This then brings me to the last part of the video, which is nerve signal optimization. For this, it's important to understand that even if your bile is thin and fluid, it still needs the right trigger to be released into your small intestine. This involves both hormones and nerve signaling. Let's start with CCK, which stands for cholecystokinin. This is a hormone that tells your gallbladder to contract and release the bile. It's triggered mainly by fat and protein in your meals, and if you eat extremely low-fat meals, then your gallbladder can get lazy and won't empty fully. On the flip side, dumping too much fat at once can cause problems if your bile flow is already sluggish. But a moderate amount of healthy fat with each meal keeps things moving regularly, and you will know best what your body tolerates and what it doesn't. Like I just said, protein can also trigger CCK release, but not as strongly as fat. I say this because a lot of people undereat on quality protein foods, so keep that in mind. Many of the nutrients and cholagogues that we just talked about also support CCK, especially gentian root. So they work on two levels, by improving bile flow and also supporting nerve and hormone signaling. The last tip I want to give you is to simply eat in a low-stress environment. When you're stressed, your body activates the sympathetic branch of your nervous system, so your fight or flight response. This then slows digestion and also slows down bile release. To counteract it, you want to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, so the rest and digest mode. Simple things like taking a few deep breaths before a meal or even just chewing more slowly can definitely help here. Regular active relaxation exercises like meditation or breathing exercises will also help train your parasympathetic nervous system. But of course, you don't have to meditate before each meal. So just make sure that you reduce your overall stress and eat in a calm and quiet environment that gives your body time to wind down and trigger all the digestion-related processes, including bile flow. Before I wrap up this video, let me also talk about a few things to avoid because they can directly lead to stagnant bile. So here are a few blockers. First would be very low-fat diets, because as you now know, without dietary fat, your gallbladder doesn't get the signal to empty. Over time, bile just sits there and can get thick or sludgy. High estrogen levels can also be a problem because estrogen can thicken bile, which is why some women notice gallbladder issues when taking birth control or during their pregnancy. Now, even though you can't always avoid hormonal changes, supporting your liver to eliminate excess estrogen definitely helps here. And then you also have diets high in refined carbs, since the lack of fiber will contribute to bile sludge and also gallstone risk. These diets also tend to promote inflammation in your liver and gallbladder, so you're really getting the worst of everything. But then again, reducing your refined carb intake should be on everyone's list of diet to-dos, so you probably already know this. So as you can see, improving bile flow naturally isn't really about one magic supplement or one magic food. Instead, it's about creating an environment where your bile stays thin, the gallbladder contracts properly, and the signals for release work as they should. If you focus on these steps, you will not only improve your fat digestion, but also support your liver detox pathways and overall digestive health. Again, good bile flow helps carry out toxins from your body, and also keeps your gut microbiome balanced and even improves hormone regulation. One last thing, if you're looking for even more info on liver and gallbladder support, exact supplement dosages, and dedicated protocols to eliminate modern toxins like microplastics, heavy metals, excess estrogen, or forever chemicals, make sure to check out the description where I link my Detox Masterclass. It shows you how to get rid of all these problematic substances that we're exposed to every day and covers diet, supplements, and much more. For more info, just open the description, it's listed under my programs.